As we reported on this show last night, most economists are in a state of almost dismay over what to expect next from this economy, especially in this coming year, right? With 2018, especially the last month, December was atrocious, right? It was, if nothing else, volatile, right? The closest we have to a consensus right now about our economy is that word, volatility. And in today's headlines, we see more proof that nobody in our economy is immune from these surges and drops. Apple, they saw the biggest single-day drop in 6 years on fears of falling sales and revenues. For more on this now, we're joined by one of my favorite guests, Peter Schiff, CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital, is good enough to join us now. Peter, let me ask you, what do you think is the single driver that worries you the most right now about this volatile economy we're dealing with?
Well, it's not a volatile economy, it's a bubble economy. Thanks to the Federal Reserve, they inflated an even bigger bubble on purpose than the one they inflated by accident that popped in 2008. And so the economy is in much worse shape structurally today than it was before it fell apart the last time. So this is the beginning of a much greater crisis, of a much greater recession than the one that we experienced back in 2008.
What is you said the Fed is doing something wrong. What's the Fed doing wrong?
Well, they did everything wrong, but the biggest things they did wrong were lowering interest rates down to zero, practically, and leaving them there for pretty much the entirety of the Obama presidency. And then they've barely raised them. Now they're still at 2%, which is very low. They also did all the quantitative easing where they printed a bunch of money and bought U.S. government bonds and mortgage bonds. That enabled the housing bubble to reflate, and that enabled the U.S. government to go much deeper into debt. So the government didn't cut spending, which is what we needed. They increased spending, but it also enabled corporations to lever up and buy stocks.
Yeah.
It enabled more Americans to go deeper into debt. So it took a gigantic debt bubble and made it much bigger. And so now we're on the precipice of a much worse crisis.
So now the Fed has to raise interest rates. They say they're going to do it a couple more times this year. As they do that, you're fearing that this thing could blow up, right?
Well, first of all, they're not going to do that. They're talking about doing that. What they're actually going to do is they're going to take rates back down to zero once it's obvious that the economy is in recession, and they're going to launch another round of quantitative easing. But that is going to take a very bad situation and make it much worse, because it's not going to work like it did last time in that it blew up a bigger bubble. This is going to blow up in everybody's face. It's not going to cause real estate prices to go up or stock prices. It's going to cause food prices to go up, gasoline prices. It's the cost of living that's going to rise, not the level of the stock market. And so this is going to be an inflationary recession. And I think that when the Democrats take control of the White House and Congress in 2020, in 2021, they're going to turn this inflationary recession into an inflationary depression.
So you think this is a political thing? That's interesting. I think both parties have had a tendency to screw our economy up over the last decade or so. I really don't think the Republicans have been any better than Democrats.
True.
But maybe you disagree.
Well, no, it isn't political, but the Democrats are going to make it political because Trump made it political. Trump claimed credit for how great the economy was. He claimed credit for the booming stock market. It was all a bubble. He put his brand on a bubble, and when that bubble pops, it's going to be very easy for the Democrats to blame all the problems on Trump, and that's what's going to enable them to win in a landslide in 2020, because when the election comes around, we're going to be knee-deep in this recession. And so people are not going to vote for 4 more years. Unfortunately, they're going to vote for socialism, which is going to give us 4 years of hell. Hopefully, we can get rid of the socialists in 2024. But we'll see. I mean, that's putting a lot of faith in the electorate to have finally figured out that government doesn't work and that we need to go back to capitalism, to free markets and sound money. If we really want to make America great again, it's not happening now. Maybe we'll have a chance to do that in the future.
Recession coming. Mark it down. Peter Schiff says so. Thank you, my friend, for being our guest as usual. We appreciate it. Talk to you again soon.